Good evening, folks. Latest edition of Across the Cast. Zach Weiss with you, joined by the man himself from the Junkyard Pod. He does a lot of great stuff for Fear the Sword. Tony Pesto. We're here to do a Cavs Pacers pregame show. Obviously, Tony, coming off the loss a couple days ago, kind of feels like we might be in an Atlanta situation again, but I think it's a good chance for the Cavs to kind of show where they're at, having learned maybe 48 minutes at home.
Yeah. Hey, man. Hopefully it's a better game than the last one. Thanks for having me on for this. It's always great to chat basketball with you. And hey, you know what? We all understand at this point that the Cavs, they're capable of beating the best teams in the NBA. We've seen them crush the worst teams on a nightly basis. But the one question they still haven't answered, can they beat the mid teams? They're 0-2 against Atlanta. They lost to Miami. They lost to this Pacers teams. Do you just have to be a mid team to beat the Cavs? Is that what it is? No disrespect to Indiana because they've been turning their season around, but it's a funny little trend here.
Yeah, and what's interesting about it is I feel like it's those teams that have size. When you get Atlanta with Jalen Johnson and Reese Shea on the wing, and then you have a true center, whether it's Capella or a Kongu going in there. And Indiana, I thought was very smart. I was curious why they did this, but when they put Jarris Walker at the 3 in the second quarter to go with Pascal and Turner, obviously the Cavs won that quarter, but I think they saw something they liked. And then when they went up 60-45 in the third, we blinked, and all of a sudden we were down. And it's just like, what exactly is going on here? Because even against the Hawks and the Heat and in the Boston loss, I don't think we saw a stretch this bad. Not in the Kenny regime. Not yet.
Yeah, I would say that's definitely the Sunday game was maybe the worst loss of the season. Now, thankfully, we don't have many to choose from. When you keep winning all your games, we don't have much to complain about. But I do think, and I tweeted this, and I saw some people kind of took it a little too harsh. I didn't mean it in a harsh way, but I said the key to beating Cleveland still, or at least the formula that teams are going to attempt, is basically just you get a whole bunch of length, you get a whole bunch of athletic wings out there, and you pressure the ball, you pressure Garland and Mitchell as much as you can, and kind of dare the other guys to beat you. And I think we've seen success, right? Like OKC tried to do that. They held Donovan Mitchell pretty well, but Evan Mobley got free, Jared Allen got free, Max Strus. Like we've seen Boston, we beat them doing the same thing. We beat New York with the same style, but Atlanta, a bunch of rangy, athletic wings, managed to give us some troubles. Indiana managed to replicate that. So I think tonight, I'm hoping that we see a re-energized Cavs team because I do think the effort and energy was really down in that game, especially the second half. And so when you combine, they shot the ball really poorly and then they didn't really match the intensity from Indiana. It's not a surprise that we had maybe the worst loss of the season. It happens sometimes.
So not only you talk about the struggles, not only were they 11 of 41 from 3, but 2 of 17 in the second half. So bench scoring in the second half: Niang 0, Coro 1, Strus 0, Levert 2 at the foul line, Merrill 0, and then the only guy to hit double digits in the second half was Garland, who had 3 turnovers and 0 assists. Certainly haven't seen that before. Allen and Wade were both field goalless in the second half. Evan only took 2 shots in the second half. And if we go to the Indiana side, they had 4 guys, just 10 points after the break, including Obi Toppin. Didn't play a lot, but was very impactful. I thought Jarris Walker was plus 22 after halftime. Ben Mathurin hasn't been great in the last month and a half, but I saw him coming back. Pascal was getting to his spot. Indy shot 61% after the break, whereas the Cavs shot 28%, 11% from 3. So with that said, in the Cavs struggle, we talk about what Indy wanted them to do. Was that second half just an Indy master class, or do you think it was also just the Cavs, the guys that had shots, just plain and simple, not hitting the looks that they did get presented?
I think it's a mixture of both. You definitely have to give a lot of credit to Indiana. They came out super aggressive in the second half. Tyrese Halliburton was out with the hamstring injury for the second half. So they said, all right, we're going to completely lock in defensively and just kind of shift our identity here. And they hit us with the full court trap, full court pressure. And the Cavs kind of look like they've never seen that before. So that was a little unfortunate. Again, I think that was kind of the effort disparity where it's like the Cavs weren't expecting we're going to have to beat a full court press for an entire quarter. So in part, you give a lot of credit to Indiana. And yeah, I mean, the Cavs, they shot poorly, but again, part of it's in a defense, part of it's Darius Garland. You mentioned the 3 turnovers. He just couldn't get anything going. He was falling down, stumbling a lot. Donovan Mitchell, of course, couldn't get himself going. And then the supporting cast, you read out the bench numbers, but like nobody on this team could create an advantage or convert when they did get an advantage. So it was really just the perfect environment for the Cavs to put up a stinker. And again, like I said, it's going to happen throughout the season.
Yeah.
We're lucky that we haven't had too many of them.
Yeah.
But Indiana really gave it to us on Sunday.
Would Ty Jerome have made enough of a difference, do you think, in a game like that to give the Cavs the edge they need? Or do you think it still, I know it's a hypothetical and we don't see him again tonight either, but could he have done something? Maybe using what he's proven this year, get inside, maybe make the extra pass, draw some attention?
Yeah, I think he certainly could have helped. I won't say it's like a guarantee that he would have swung everything, but we've seen throughout the year that Ty Jerome can come off the bench and score 8-10 points in like a 2-minute stretch. And all of a sudden, a game where maybe it was kind of you're just treading water. Now you have all the momentum, and we're talking like potential Cavalanche. And so, especially that third quarter, and I know we planned on talking about like where we want to see the Cavs improve tonight. One thing that I want them to improve on, and something that Ty Jerome could have helped with, is let's say we're probably going to see the press again at some point tonight. Maybe they don't try to replicate it, but I'd be surprised if they didn't. You need to see the entire supporting cast and definitely Mobley and Allen be more aggressive, because if Indiana's going to put that much pressure on the ball, you're going to end up having an advantage if you can complete one pass, which they had some trouble completing that pass on Sunday. But if you do, then you get a lot of space to work with. And that's where Ty Jerome could have helped, because we all know Ty Jerome is one of the most aggressive players in the NBA, sometimes to his own detriment with some of the shots he takes, but he's going to go after it. We need Mobley and Allen to go after it. And then the other thing that, goes back to what I was saying with the effort is the Cavs need to show up on defense too, because the first half against Indiana, they played pretty well. They played hard on defense. Second half, I thought they were super unfocused. It goes far back, honestly, as their game against Toronto from last week, too. I don't think they were locked in for either matchup. I saw a lot of dilly-dallying out there. I thought everyone was ball watching. It didn't seem like they were staying engaged away from the play, and it ended up burning them in both games. The difference is they shot, I think, 40% from 3 against Toronto, and they had their worst shooting night of the season against Indiana. And so tonight I'm hoping that they aren't sleepwalking on defense, because we've seen with this team, you turn in some stops, that's where they generate a bunch of their offense. So kind of need to see them both ends of the floor click into place a little bit better this time.
And that's that same Raptor team that then went on to become the latest team to beat the Warriors, to send them under 500 last night. So again, Cavs should have played better, but I do definitely give credit to them now that they finally have their guys back. They do actually look like a competent team with a full starting lineup, because they were starting all rookies, for most of the year. And, we talk about that bench. It's going to be the same first 5 again. Dean joins the core 4, Darius, Donovan, Evan, and Jared. Who do you want to see in this game off the bench really make that difference? And who will be that X factor? Obviously, it's going to be 5 guys getting minutes, but who's the one that you think really needs to step up?
I'm going to be counting on Max Strus, Old Faithful right there. When we got hit with that press, I would have thought Max Strus would be like the perfect guy to have out there, because he can handle the ball, provide that tertiary playmaking, and you give him an ounce of daylight, he's going to shoot it. Unfortunately, he kind of struggled as well in that game. Usually he's the one guy who you can count on to not play lazy or lackadaisical, but there was a play where he's bringing the ball up one-on-one full court and just kind of gets ripped, and Indiana gets a layup. So if Max Strus comes out aggressive, and I'd imagine he's probably one of the players, if not the player, who's most pissed off with how Sunday's game went, I'd like to see him come out real aggressive with a lot of energy and just bury Indiana with some 3-point shooting. And that's what I would say is the X factor, is going to be the 3-point shooting tonight.
Yeah, Strus had been 9 for 13 from 3 over the prior 2 games, 2 of his 3 double-figure scoring games since coming back on December 20th, came in that window, and I want to talk a little bit about Niang and about how Kenny does his rotations, because maybe the only qualm I have right now is you've been very good with it, and sometimes you do want to let it ride, but he's not changed the way he makes subs, that he'll bring 3 guys in the first quarter and 3 guys in the third quarter. He does want, one of, and I respect it, one of Garland, Mitchell, and one of Mobley, Allen on the court for pretty much the entire first. and the entire third. It makes sense. And you're subbing the guys around them. So in regards to Niang, who I thought it's had some good games, but definitely struggled against Indy. What do you expect to see from him? Is part A, and part B. Could there be a situation where maybe there's a few minutes left in the quarter, they're struggling, instead of giving him his full complement of minutes, or same with Karras, or same with Max, then maybe he'll pull the trigger and go to I don't think he'll play, but maybe to Tyson, and if not, then to Sam or Isaac.
Yeah, listen, I'll start off by giving Niang his flowers because he has had a good season, but these matchups are the ones that scare me the most with Niang when, again, you're playing those rangy athletic teams with a bunch of interchangeable guys. Niang sometimes can look like a fish out of water, and I thought in the second half, especially against Indiana, again, I gave him his flowers, so I want to be clear, I'm not hating, but that was one of the worst 8-minute stretches we've seen of him in Cleveland. He looked so out of place. He offered no help to breaking the press right there. And Kenny Atkinson has done a brilliant job. We mentioned right before we went live that he should be the clear favorite for Coach of the Year. This was probably the one instance, the first time all year, where I've had a little bit of a not sure I love what Kenny's doing here with the rotations. He left Niang out there for a really long time during that third quarter stretch. And I also think while 100% I'm all in on the long-term plan, if you want to keep Mitchell and Garland and the core four, keep them fresh, keep them healthy, stagger them throughout the regular season. You don't need to play them 40 minutes in a game to beat Indiana at the end of the day. But with how things were trending, I thought during that third quarter run that Indiana went on, I would have liked to see Kenny press the button and get Mitchell and Garland out there to try and stop the bleeding. He didn't do it because he's sticking to his plan with the rotations, and I think ultimately that will pay off. Again, I said it earlier, but the Cavs are still winning 80% of their games, so there's not too much to complain about. But yeah, I think with Niang, if things at any point start to trend the way they did on Sunday, I'd like to see Kenny move a little faster to pull the plug on Niang and either ride someone like Dean Wade a little longer, or maybe even give the rookie a chance. I know they haven't really played him too much, so I don't know how much faith they have in him at this point, but he's played good with the Charge, and the garbage time minutes haven't been that great, so we'll see. That might be wishful thinking. I wouldn't be mad at it, but I definitely think Kenny, if things go the way they did on Sunday, might have to shorten the rotations a bit. But at the same time, you got the Thunder on Thursday, so if he wants to keep his guys fresh no matter what, I'm not going to blame him.
Yeah, speaking of said rookie, Jalen Tyson in his last game for the Charge, 23-16, 5 for 5 from 3. I think he's proven good playmaking. Honestly, I wish there was a world, Tony, where we could get Craig minutes, but obviously we're not going to get CPJ right now unless someone goes down, just because of the job he did last year. He's a very good ball handler, but obviously when you got two all-stars in the backcourt, and then you got Strus, LeVert, and Jerome. Obviously, no Jerome tonight. It's definitely been tough, because I remember our preseason discussions as a fan base was Craig or Ty Jerome. Obviously, no disrespect to CPJ, but I do think the right choice was made. But I feel like if there was an extra person to come in just for a couple minutes to try and help break the press, and he's a 6'3", 6'4" athletic guard, it would be in a perfect world he'd get a couple of minutes, but there's not enough minutes. It could be Craig Porter.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough to see him out there, but Kenny, you never know. If he presses that button, maybe it works. It seems like outside of the Sunday game that I just mentioned, Kenny can do no wrong this year. So maybe he's seen into the future and he knows exactly how to handle this. And Craig Porter could be like an unexpected solution to that, but you mentioned it. He's a 6'4" athletic guard. You get him in the open floor. Like I mentioned, if they're trapping Darius Garland and you dish the ball to CPJ and he has a 4-on-3 advantage, he's shown to be pretty nice when he has that advantage. The problem for him is when he kind of has to create out of nothing. But all of last year and even this year in garbage time, when he has that 4-on-3 advantage, he's a really great playmaker, great at getting to the rim. So we could see him out there. I'm not expecting it, but keep your eyes open. Kenny might surprise all of us.
And speaking of guards, I do want to talk about Andrew Nembhard, who's going to be the lead guard tonight with Tyrese Haliburton now missing. It'll be six quarters in a row against the Cavs. He did an incredible job in the last game. And, watching the Pacers-Knicks series last year, I enjoyed what Andrew Nembhard was doing from that perspective. The Knicks just beaten the Cavs the year before. You got an up-and-coming team. It's fun to root for them as a spectator. You got to find something to root for in every game. Nembhard hit that crazy three, with the clock running, and unfortunately he did that twice. in the fourth quarter to kind of ice the game. Should the Cavs be paying him a little extra attention? You think with the kind of the lineup around him, with Mathurin, Siakam, Turner, you kind of just have to focus on what you can and live with those shots going in.
Yeah, I think especially like the banked in shot that he hit, those are shots that you kind of have to live with. Like there's not much you can do there. I think against Indiana tonight, because Halliburton's not out there, what I'd like to see the Cavs do is kind of just stay home on defense. I thought a lot of their problems against Indiana and the Toronto game was like guards or whoever's on the perimeter are getting beat off the dribble, and then Allen and Mobley are really overstepping and help. Like, the bigs have to stop a drive to the rim, but they're over helping in certain scenarios. Then there's those dump off passes for wide open dunks, wide open layups, or the kick out to a wide open three. And I feel like if everyone's re-energized on defense and paying the appropriate attention to their matchup, because what was happening is like Indiana or Toronto would make one pass, whoever's off ball isn't really paying attention, their man catches the ball, they're like, oh shoot, I'm supposed to be playing defense. They get beat. Maybe they're like on their defender's hip or on their opponent's hip or whatever. And then Allen has to step up, and it's a complete collapse from the defense. And so I'd like to see them stay home, trust their individual defense, and actually bring that effort individually so that you can trust it a little bit more. So that would be my game plan, especially against someone like Nembhard, who, listen, if he beats you, he beats you, is kind of how I feel. He's a great player, great role player, but he's not going to provide the same threat that Halliburton did. So it's kind of a completely different matchup this time around. I know Halliburton didn't play in the second half, but they didn't exactly have time to like game plan for that. This time around, Halliburton's not out there. I'm just going to trust my one-on-one defense and try to keep everyone in place, because again, if Benedict Mathurin or Nembhard beat you by taking some tough shots, you just tip your hat to them.
And then, Tony, ultimately, what's the key stat, key number, key figure that the Cavs have to hit, whether it's on offense or on defense, to ultimately come away with their 34th win in 40 games?
Yeah, so the defensive effort is important. That's just as important as what I'm about to say next. But again, it's the 3-point shooting and it's the offensive output in general. Against Indiana on Sunday, the Cavs scored below 100 points in a game for the first time all season. For reference, they did that 10 times last year. So we're already like almost halfway through the year, and they're well on pace to they're the best offense in the NBA. So the offense has been leading the charge for them. It's kind of the opposite of what we've seen from years in the past. So tonight, I want to see them relight that spark on offense. And a lot of it comes down to, the X factor each time has kind of been a different person stepping up. But tonight, what I really want to see is I want to see Donovan Mitchell get going, because this might surprise people. Mitchell hasn't scored 20 points in a game since before the new year. So I would love if Mitchell found his rhythm tonight, breathes life back into the offense. Maybe he gets 25, 30 points, sprinkle in some assists. And the number that I'm looking for, I want the Cavs to score 130 points on Indiana tonight. They've done it a lot this season. It's a very high number, but I want to see just an offensive explosion, because that's been leading the charge all year. So I want to see Donovan Mitchell get hot and this team just run Indiana off the floor.
Wouldn't that feel good after the way it went last game, the Miami game, the Atlanta games? So I'd say for me, there's 3 things I want to see. I want to see Donovan score 30 points. I'm not here to tell you how many times he's done that this year. He's, for all the ups and downs, he's still averaging 23, 5, and 5. He's done enough. He's been efficient enough. We all remember the Bucks game early in the season. And yes, as good as Darius has been in the clutch, Donovan's been right there with him, drawing all the attention and making shots in his own right. I want Donovan 30 points. I want 17 threes. We made 11 last game. I think there's enough of a volume. I think we're going to get a couple of Dean attempts that drop tonight. I do think the Pacers crowd, which to me is really not one of the louder ones in the league, but is a very good fourth quarter crowd. Similar to the Cavs, where they actually start quieter than you'd expect, considering how good that the team is. They start quiet, they build up as the game goes, and by the time the fourth quarter rolls around, you feel like every game is a finals game. We remember that. And the third stat is no Pacer getting to 30 on the other side. It is a balanced attack, and they can just as well win with the balanced attack, but you don't want to see Pascal get hot. You don't want to see Benedict get hot. You don't want to see Nembhard get going. There's a reason they gave him his big salary to be a second-round pick, getting 20-plus mil a year entering his 3rd season, regardless of the NBA salary inflation. I still think is incredible for him. You don't want to see Miles get going. He's, I think, top 3 floor spacing 5 in the league and one of the best we've ever seen in the NBA. So I think if those three things happen, we are going to see a 36-4 roster at the end of the evening.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping for. And listen, it's a TNT game. We got some all-star agendas on the line. I hope the Cavs, because of the way the last game went too, maybe they'll come out with a little bit of an extra edge. Certainly a lot to not necessarily prove, but certainly a lot of statements that they can make tonight. So I hope that they're taking it seriously.
No, certainly. Because if you don't get this one done, then you're facing OKC, and then you're in Minnesota after being in OKC, and all of a sudden you look at 4 losses in 37 games to potentially 4 in a row. Because I do think a win tonight gives you the confidence going back into OKC and then into Minnesota, and otherwise you get this win, you get your confidence, you take the loss, it lingers. OKC knows that, and I don't think I've seen it anywhere, but I feel like there's an outside chance Chet wants to return for that game. Not that, I mean, I'm sure Mark Daigneault would rather be against anyone else in the league so that you lower the bar, but if Chet does come back and that's the case, then we're looking at something very interesting.
Yeah, change the whole dynamic of that game if Chet's out there.
All right. Any final words here, Tony? As we are about 20, TNT, about 22 minutes away from tip-off right now.
Yeah, I just want to thank you for having me on. This was a lot of fun. We'll have to connect again and do some sort of stream or podcast soon. And I'm hoping that the Frog manages to drop a dance video tonight. It's been too long. One game too long.
Have you met the Frog yet this year?
I have not. I still got to make it happen. So I got to get outside that arena and find him.
I got very lucky. The one game I went to, I was outside before there was a mob behind me. Snuck in, got a quick thumbs up. So shout out to the Cavs Frog. We know it started out as Moondog, but Cavs Frog is very real. There is a Cavs Frog. Get your Cavs Frog merch. That's not a plug. There's no affiliation. We got homage. Get your homage stuff. It's great. I have a lot of it. This is not homage. This is from the team store. Shout out Donovan. But get your homage stuff and go find Cavs Frog. Tony will definitely get together again soon. Make sure you follow Tony_Pesta. Follow along with the JYD. The JYP. I'm sorry, the JYP.
Yes.
JYP, the Junkyard Podcast. And we'll see you again very soon.